Hello, welcome to Giggles and Gratitude. I'm Dena.
And I'm DiAnna.
And if you don't know DiAnna yet, DiAnna is filling in for Tia, who's on a much-deserved sabbatical. And if you don't know who DiAnna is, that's because you did not listen to our You Know Something episode. It was our first one of 2025. And if you didn't listen, what are you doing with your life? I mean,
Right.
how could you better spend your time than listening to us? So I hope when you finish today's episode, you'll go back and listen to our first episode. It was called Botox and Fillers and Threads. Oh my. And we introduced you to DiAnna, and DiAnna is a mutual friend of Tia and ours. We love her to pieces. She was the perfect person to come in and talk with me and have fun with me. And DiAnna is a nurse of many years.
You're telling my age.
I know, and I look at you and I think, how could you have been a nurse that long? She worked in pediatrics, and she's also a nurse injector of, would you say 16 years?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
So she knows her way around
A
syringe. Yes, you do. And the Botox fillers and threads on mine. So go back and listen to that. But for now, DiAnna, this is our Giggles and Gratitude episode. We have it on Sundays, and we talk about maybe things that made us grateful during the week, made us giggle during the week,
Yay.
Inspired us, or maybe we heard something from other shows that we like to listen to that inspired us to share maybe a devotion or inspiration or testimony or just anything that helped us through our week. And it's kind of a free-for-all. I mean, just whatever's on your mind is fun too.
Okay.
So
Let's get started.
let's do. First of all, I want to thank our listeners in New Zealand for making our first episode together, DiAnna.
Yay.
Debut at number 9 in the entertainment news category. So I sent that to DiAnna. Now, when I sent it to you, we were at 13. And when I went back and looked at the chart flow, we actually debuted at number 9. So
That is fantastic. I am so proud of you, Dena.
I'm proud of you.
Well, you are the inspiration and the wheels behind how this has been such a success, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be number 9 with you.
Yay! As you know, and our regular listeners would know, I live with my mother.
Yes.
When I got divorced several years ago, my parents took me in. I really had nowhere else to go. And they were welcoming me with open arms, so we are glad to have you. Mm-hmm. It was very comforting to be there. It was my childhood home. I went back to my childhood bedroom, which was kind of, I'm laying in my bed the first night looking at the ceiling thinking, okay, I'm back here.
Well, that was a safe landing spot for you,
It
meaning comfortable, good times, and we surround ourselves during bad times and hurtful times by a lot of times what's in the past. So that was a soft landing for you.
It was. I've really felt loved and welcomed, and I needed them.
Yeah.
And they were there for me. And now years later, my father has passed, and my mother needs me.
Right.
So I'm able to help her in return for all that they did for me. So I'm blessed to be able to do that. I'm not able to help her financially, but I do help her, around the house with daily activity, daily needs.
Well, I call that a labor of love.
It is.
Because there is a labor part to it. Taking care of someone, that is really a difficult job, and truly I respect you for that. And a lot of times people turn the other cheek and they don't see the need of their parents, and it's just payback time. They did all those things for us, so now our turn to take care of them. And as long as you can keep moving forward and keep yourself healthy and make their last days as good as they can possibly be, then I think that's your language of love for her.
Yeah, I'm honored to be able to do it. And she's great. She's very capable right now, very independent. But it's just easier for me to help her, Yeah, I know you can do that, but why don't you let me do it? Right.
A gentle suggestion.
Yeah, people can be stubborn.
Oh, can they? Oh.
I know you don't know, being a nurse, you don't know. But anyway, when you live with somebody, you learn their quirks, and we all have quirks.
That's right.
And you probably learned that. Do you still consider yourself a newlywed?
every single day.
How long have you been married, if you want to say?
We got married on 7/7/17.
Okay, so doing math, that's 8 years?
It's coming up on 8 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so you probably discovered quirks about your hubby, and he discovered quirks about you. And some quirks you love somebody because of, and other you love them in spite of those quirks. My mother has what I would consider a quirk, and it is narrating her life. And what I mean by that is where I might be back in my bedroom and think, I'm hungry. I think I'll go in the kitchen and make lunch. My mother will say out loud, I'm hungry. I think I'll go in the kitchen and make some lunch, even when I'm not in the room. And then she'll say, oh, we've got some milk. I think I better drink that before it goes bad. Well, I'm back in my room thinking, is my mom talking to me? So I go in and say, did you say something? No, I'm talking to myself. I'm like, oh, okay. So this is daily. And I leave wherever I'm doing and saying, what'd you say? Oh, I'm talking to myself. So I said, well, if you talk to yourself, could you say it
in
your
a different
inside
voice?
Could you say it inside your brain?
Or a different voice.
Yeah. So no, it's not her saying, I think I'll get some milk. But see, I worry that, wait, is she talking to me? If I just assume she's talking to herself. So then I'm afraid she thinks I'm ignoring her.
Right.
So when I said, do you think maybe you could say it inside your brain without using your vocal cords? She thought for a second and she said, no, I don't think I can. So I thought, it's her house, her rules. But that made me curious, and you'll learn about me, Diana, on this podcast. I Google a lot. I wonder, I'll Google and I'll find out, and I like to share my knowledge. So I Googled it.
Knowledge is power, girl.
It is. It is. So what does it mean when you talk out loud to yourself when you're alone? And before I tell you, Diana, what it means, according to experts, I want to ask you, do you narrate your life when you're alone?
Not really.
I don't either.
No. I'm thinking to myself. No.
Okay. I don't
really.
either. Okay, well, according to research, it's actually a form, they call it self-talk, which is a normal, healthy way to process your life. It's a way you can plan, you can deal with your problems, you can motivate yourself, or simply articulate your feelings by giving voice to your inner dialogue. Essentially, it's a way to work through ideas by saying them out loud, which can be particularly helpful when dealing with stressful situations or complex thoughts. It's normal behavior. Most people engage in some sort of self-talk. So, are we abnormal, you think?
Well, I have to say, when I'm aggravated at myself, I do talk to myself. But on a routine basis, I do not talk to myself just to go to the refrigerator and drink some milk. So if you hear me talking to myself, you probably just want to leave me alone because I am not obviously happy.
So you scold yourself?
Yes. That's a great way to put it.
Do you think it helps you, or do you think it's a negative?
You
say like, you dummy, or something?
At the moment, I don't call myself names.
Okay.
I usually direct myself as to what I should have done or should be doing. So no, I don't ever use derogatory terms for anything. I don't feel that that's helpful.
So that's probably motivating yourself and being your own therapist a little bit. Like,
True.
Sometimes I'll say, what did you learn from that, Dena? When I do something stupid, I think, you're not going to do that again now, are you? So that's probably good.
Mm-hmm.
Because it also says it's a way to help you remember things. Like, sometimes I'll do that, like, okay, Dena, remember you're putting your phone on top of the car to put this in the back of your stuff in the back of the car. Don't drive off without it. I'll actually say that out loud because I remember it.
Oh, I've never really heard of that before, but I think I would benefit from doing that. That's a great thing. It's a double reminder, if you will, because we absorb information by listening, also by seeing, and then by writing it down. So in your mind, you're hearing it, if you will, in your inner voice, but if you verbally speak that out loud, your brain registers, I feel like. So I'm going to try that.
Yeah. And this does say memory is enhanced by saying it out loud.
Okay. All right.
It can help you solidify information in your memory. So I guess it kind of imprints in your brain if you say it out loud, maybe.
Right. Correct.
This is where I'm going to put my keys today. I think you should put your keys in the same place every day, but I don't.
Having a home for everything in your home
Yes.
is so beneficial. My husband has taught me that. It's been a long process, but I see now the value of it because I am not constantly looking for my keys or whatever, like my badge for the hospital.
Yeah.
All those years I'd be running around like a crazy person looking for my badge. So we found it a home, and when I got home from work, I put it in its home, and then I didn't have to be stressed.
Yeah,
So,
it makes perfect sense.
It
Everything
is.
has a home.
Everything
Where is
has a
this
home.
home? Where is
Yes.
this home? Yeah. Yeah. So it's normal. And it says it can be a problem if you do it excessively, if it's disruptive self talk, if it becomes very loud and interferes with your daily life. It could be a sign of actually anxiety or a mental health condition. I think if you talk to yourself and you talk back, or you hear a voice answer you, then you may need to go see your doctor.
That's correct. Never
Okay.
heard anybody talk back, so I'm good at that.
Yeah. So we learn to live with things with people that we live with. So,
Right.
all right. And another thing I saw this week, Diana, which I thought was a very positive thing and unfortunately a rare thing these days. Are you familiar with Charlie Sheen and Denise Richards actors?
Yes.
Okay.
I lived during that era.
Yeah, Charlie Sheen was a very popular movie star, and then he got the television show Two and a Half Men
Right.
and got paid. I think he got paid more than any person on a sitcom. And he was like the number one sitcom. It was not for me. I didn't watch it, but. And then he was married to Denise Richards, who is an actress who is now a Real Housewives, I think. Real Housewife of Beverly Hills or something like that. But anyway, they had two daughters. And then she also adopted a daughter after her divorce from him. But Charlie Sheen had like a meltdown. It was in 2011. It's due to drug addiction. He did controversial interviews where he insulted the producer and the creator of Two and a Half Men, which was not wise, Chuck Lorre. He talked about having tiger's blood, and he traveled around and was with these women, and it was always very heightened sexual conversation. It was inappropriate conversation. Just kind of crazy. It's like a meltdown. Do you recall that? You remember when he did that?
I do not.
Well, he got fired. So that was not a positive influence or experience for his children. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Denise Richards has an OnlyFans account. I don't know if you're familiar with OnlyFans.
I have heard of it, yes.
Okay. And it's OnlyFans, you can do whatever you want. Somebody who's a celebrity could say, I'll chat with you privately if you join my OnlyFans and pay a monthly subscription. Or it may be a photo, or you might could send this person clothes and they'll wear the outfit and take a photo and send it to you. But I think it's limitless what people think of it as a sexual site, I think, but it's not necessarily.
Okay.
But in any case, she and her oldest daughter, Samantha, who was 20, started doing things together on OnlyFans. I don't know what they do, but it's insinuated that it would be a little risque photos to make money. So I don't feel like that's necessarily a positive influence for your children.
Right.
But I don't know exactly.
In my opinion, that
Yeah.
is not a positive influence for your children.
Right. And I don't know exactly what they do. But anyway, there's another daughter, Lola, who's 19. And on January 22nd of this year, she posted on her Instagram photos of her baptism. And she captioned it, "I chose to get baptized at the beginning of this year because I only made it through this year by the strength of Jesus. And I'm so happy to go into next year after publicly declaring Jesus as my Savior." I think it really takes courage in that atmosphere, being brought up in that environment that we can only assume is what it appears on the outside to be. That's all we can go by. Right. And Hollywood in general, people say Sodom and Gomorrah, and it's gotten so bad, and
right.
Actually denouncing Christ and religion, ridiculing people for their religion, shaming them even to come out and say it. So for a 19-year-old girl to maybe kind of go against how she was raised and her parents' examples. And like I say, I'm just going by what I'm able to witness from the outside. I don't know what goes on in their home. I just think that's very brave and very inspiring, especially to this generation. She's 19. So.
Absolutely. And I am super happy that she chose to do that. there is a lot of negative out there, but people, I'm telling you, there's way more positive. And if you can remain positive throughout even a background of her childhood, not necessarily being in, say, church or listening to gospel music or reading the Bible, as you know, a lot of times people do. If you don't have that type of an influence, I just wonder what happened to her and what spoke to her heart, and just how she came to Jesus. I think that would probably be something I'm going to Google.
Yeah, exactly. She does have a new podcast, newly launched, called Heavenly Bonded. And the description is that it's a faith-based podcast. The podcast has an official Instagram, and listeners can check it out. There's new episodes every Sunday, just like ours.
Hey, we love that.
Yeah.
It's a good day to have one.
And it's on YouTube. I always like to put our podcast up on YouTube also, but I've had struggles uploading. It keeps canceling in the middle. So if you've listened to us in the past on YouTube, I'm working on that. You can find us at our website or any other podcast streaming app. So I think I'm going to check out Lola's podcast, Heavenly Bond. To be that young and a new Christian, be interesting to see what she talks about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of that, coming to Jesus without being raised in that, that's great. That's one thing. But what is, if you just want to share a tidbit of your story as far as, were you raised, we're both Southerners, so that's kind of, you're more likely to be raised in the church. That's a stereotype, but stereotypes come from some truth sometimes.
Right.
I was raised a Southern Baptist. What is your history with the church and with God, and your testimony, I guess?
Okay. Well, I was raised in church. Every time the church doors were open, we were there. We usually were the ones opening the door.
Oh, wow.
My dad was what's called a lay speaker, and that means not necessarily a preacher of a certain facility, but people would be sick or needed a vacation. He would go and be a lay speaker for, that particular Sunday.
Kind of like a substitute teacher or something.
Correct, yeah. So we had the advantage of going to a lot of different churches. Obviously, the Southern Baptist, Methodist. My mom was raised Moravian. You don't even really hear of that much
Never
anymore.
heard that word.
Really?
No.
Well, I can Google that too.
Moravian.
Yeah, you can Google that. It's again, it has Jesus as the center, and it's the same. They just call it a different name. Mm-hmm. So we had a lot of different experiences in churches that were more formal, if you will, and went by a schedule. They had a bulletin that you went by and you pretty much knew. Or we had churches where they were less rigid and went a little bit more through the feeling of the Holy Spirit in the service. And so I have to just say, I can't really call myself a Baptist, a Methodist, a Moravian, any of that. I call myself a Christian. Mm-hmm. And I don't get caught up into religious
denominations.
That is just not something that I saw a lot of that through the years, and that's something, maybe that's why I don't really consider myself anything other than just loving Jesus, and I can't live without him every day and his help.
Did you ever have a point, that's a great gift your parents gave you too, by the way, to start you off that way, and it gives you a foundation even if we stray, but did you ever have a moment where you questioned anything, as you got older and you start to rebel against your parents' way of life? Anyway, I think that's a natural thing to think, I'm independent, I'm going to think about this. Did you ever experience that?
Oh, yeah. As a teenager, every time the doors were open, it's like, you have to go, and I wanted to be out with my friends, or I wanted to be doing my kind of thing. And I was still underneath their home, so still had to, go by what they wanted to do. Yes, there were times I would not want to go to church. There are oftentimes, even to current day, that I I'm just being honest. I question the Lord. There are things that I do not understand, and I think there's things that we are never going to understand on this side of heaven. So my faith is grounded and rooted within Him, and Christian is what I would call myself.
Do you remember the moment that, as a semi-adult or adult, I don't know what age you were, thinking for yourself, like when you were a child, your parents were telling you this, and this, and you were witnessing other people living that lifestyle and telling you this is the fact, this is what we believe, this is learning the Bible. But did you ever have this moment where it washed over you that you thought, I'm saved? Or was it just always part of your being? Or was there that moment?
I recall I was 6 years old when it happened, and they were doing the end prayer and asked if anyone wanted to come forth to be saved. And I walked down and I knelt down, and I feel like I was saved on that day. And I've tried to represent my Lord in a fashion that would make him proud of me. Have I ever questioned things and don't understand things? Absolutely, every single day. But I do feel like at 6 years old, and then I was baptized. We actually went through the water baptism.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am saved, and I know that. And I do remember that day, and it was a great day.
That's great. I went through we went to church, from the time I could remember. My first memories as a child, I can remember going to church.
Yeah.
And then we moved, we transferred to another city and never got into an official church
Yes.
again.
I understand.
I had that foundation, I believed, but I didn't do that weekly routine of going to worship.
Sure.
I never doubted God, but I was not saved at that time. We probably stopped going when I was 6. And then when I got a driver's license, I thought, I'm going to find a church. That's when I actually started dating a guy in high school, and it was his church I started going to. He'd pick me up. And when that talk comes, and at my particular church, it was at the end of every service. They want to call you down. Not every church. The church I go to now doesn't do it every time.
Right.
It's just kind of more of a lesson that we learn. But I wanted to go so bad. But for you to do it at 6 is incredible, because it wasn't that I didn't believe and then I didn't. My feet would almost be going that way. It was people looking at me. I was shy.
Mm-hmm.
I think it takes bravery for someone who's introverted and shy.
Oh, absolutely.
To get up and show your emotion and to get down on your knees, if that's what you do. And then to go and get baptized in front of everybody staring at me. That was like my worst nightmare. Everybody staring at me. I was 17 when I finally just said, Dena, I was just pulled so hard. I wasn't thinking about anyone looking at me. It was just a drawing that I couldn't resist. You know what I mean? But I think sometimes it's hard for people to do that physical confirmation in front of everyone. To do it. Do you think it's necessary to do that? Do you think that's something you can do at home? You can say the words at home. I'm putting you on the spot here. It's a tough question.
Not a tough question at all. I know exactly the answer. I think you can find God anywhere that you are. And that does not mean you have to be surrounded by people in a church. It's a great thing if you are, because you have their support. They're obviously happy and glad for you. However, in the privacy of your own home, and you feel like you want to speak to Jesus and ask him to come into your heart and forgive your sins and to help you live a better life as a believer, you're a little... what is the word I'm trying to say? You don't have that people surrounding you. You're a little crippled more, because again, you've got to, once that's over, you've got to start reading a little bit in the Word in order to, if you're a fresh Christian and you've never been raised in a church, you have to learn about the Lord, and spending time in His Word allows your heart to become bonded through the Spirit. And so, no, I do not feel like you have to go to church every Sunday. I don't feel like you have to go to church at all. I feel like once you have made that commitment, there should be a change within you of how you treat people. And God will give you the opportunity at some point to confess and say, I'm a Christian. Maybe I can help you through this arena because I've been through this before. And you'll speak that, and that's professing the name of the Lord.
Right.
Again, that's my opinion.
I think it would be sad to hold back from the life you can live out of embarrassment or a lot of people are introverted. They're
Sure.
socially awkward.
Right.
And they feel that pull. So I feel like you can do it in your heart, in your mind, say the words in your inside your inside brain voice that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
You can say that statement that, please, I accept you as my Savior, come into my heart. And that may give you the courage later to do a public
Sure.
demonstration
Exactly.
and you will feel changed.
Of your faith.
Yeah.
And there is something to water baptism. Again, water is cleansing. And just like Jesus, was baptized by John the Baptist, and as he rose up, you rise up a new creature in Jesus. Your sins are forgiven, and you are to walk forward in your faith. Does not mean it's going to be an easy day every day, because I guarantee you it's not. There is Satan who is alive and awake and has so many things planned to destroy you. However, God's bigger than that, and even an early Christian needs to be fed. And what I mean by that is surround yourself by other believers. Do find somewhere you can worship, even if it is in the privacy of your own home. They have a lot of shows on TV that you can find the preacher that speaks to you. Just because it is a minister on TV, I find that there's a few that just really are on point and preach, if you will, or speak to my heart. So, you can do that anywhere that you want to.
I appreciate you sharing that little bit of your testimony. I know you well enough to know there are chapters and chapters of your experiences and where you've reached out to God for your strength. And I hope in the future, if you feel comfortable, you can share that too. That's just a tiny tidbit of another way for people to get to know you.
I would be honored to do that, yes.
Good. And we will do that in future episodes. But we are almost out of time, DiAnna, for today's episode. And so this is actually your first Giggles and Gratitude. It's in the bag.
I love it.
And normally this is where I would say, up next is Tia time. But because Tia's not here, there can be no Tia time. So what if we have you in these episodes now and we call it DiAnna's Devotions?
I love that.
You love it? Okay.
Great idea.
You want to do the first one now?
I would be honored to.
Right, thank you, girl.
All right. So this is from E.M. Simpkins, and he writes, what if, instead of asking God to remove the struggle, we ask Him to use it, to make us resilient, to make us strong, and to make us whole. This reminds me of a song by Casting Crowns, and it's Praise You Through This Storm. And I have praised the Lord through many storms in my life, and it is during my deepest, darkest struggles that I have learned to count on Him. He will always be there. He will never leave us. And it is a struggle daily sometimes, but you always have the Lord. So I'm going to leave you with that thought, and we hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.